So we all know that carbon dioxide, or CO2, is one of the biggest greenhouse gases driving global warming, right? So basically, researchers have been working hard to find ways not just to capture that CO2, but to actually convert it into useful stuff. Think like fuels, chemicals, or even building materials. And the big challenge has always been that the process to do the CO2 conversion is usually way too expensive to be practical on a large scale. But MIT engineers have just cracked the code because they messed around with a thing called an electrode. So electrodes are the surfaces where these chemical reactions happen to turn CO2 into things like ethylene, which is a chemical that's used in plastics and other products. And basically, for these electrodes to work effectively, they have to balance two things, right? They have to be effective at conducting current, as well as being as well as repelling water, which is a huge issue, right? It's called hydrophobicity, if that takes you back to high school biology or chemistry. The issue is that the materials that conduct electricity well are usually terrible at repelling water, and vice versa, basically. And so it's kind of like a seesaw where you kind of have to like choose which property you really want. But MIT kind of got creative in the sense that they use this material called Teflon, which you guys have probably heard. It's a water repellent plastic. They took Teflon and they wove super thin copper wires through it. So basically this divides the Teflon into a bunch of smaller interconnected sections, right? And this copper wires are the highways for the electrons to flow, right? So electrons go through the wires. It's conductive, and they maintain the water resistance of the Teflon, which means that this is the perfect material, right? They solve the issue. And the big thing about this is they didn't just solve this on a tiny scale, right? They built a sheet of this material that's 10 times larger than what's typically used, and it still worked great. It ran for 75 hours straight without any issues. And the really exciting thing about this weaving process they use that with interconnecting the copper wires throughout the material is that it can be used with different materials, right? So other engineers can use it, they can customize it to their own needs, right? And so this is pretty flexible. That's going to be potentially huge for industrial level CO2 capture and conversion. And the goal is to get this technology to get to a point where it's affordable to produce things like ethylene from CO2 instead of from petroleum, which has like a larger carbon footprint and is more damaging for the environment. So basically that's the latest breakthrough from MIT. They're doing incredible stuff, and hopefully large scale CO2 capture will become a practical and affordable reality.